Hello, hello, good morning. Well, today we're gonna start with our grammar topic and let's learn passive voice. Well, I think you already saw this topic, so it's gonna be a review, active and passive voice. It's gonna be the topic of this period, the grammar topic. So let's see an example. People in Mexico speak Spanish. Spanish is spoken in Mexico. Active voice is my first sentence, and my second sentence is passive voice. Let's see the difference. Active voice. When the subject of a sentence performs the verb's action, we say the sentence is an active voice. Okay? People in Mexico speak Spanish. So the subject of the sentence is performing the action. So people is speaking. So that's why it's an active voice. Active voice, it's simple because, well, we have to know the grammar rules of each tense that we already saw. Let's start with simple present. What's the rule? My verb goes in base form. Only I add the s to my verb in the third person, he, she, it. Remember this? Example, our verb has 3 columns. The base form, speak, the simple past, spoke, and the past participle, spoken. So I'm going to use an active voice. I'm going to use the base form verb. Example, active voice is I speak Spanish. He, she, it speaks Spanish. Okay, because it's he, she, it. But if I have a subject that's Randy, Randy is he, so I have the S. Randy speaks Spanish. We, you, they speak Spanish. It doesn't have an S. And people in Mexico speak Spanish is my example because people it's they. So they doesn't have an S in active voice in simple present. Okay, now let's go to the second part of passive voice. When do I use passive voice? The subject is no longer active, but instead is being acted upon the verb. Or passive. Spanish is spoken in Mexico. Here, Spanish is not performing the action. Spanish is not the doer of the action. So that's why it's passive voice. In passive voice, all the verbs go in past participle. Remember, speak, spoke, spoken. So now, how do I form a passive voice in simple present? Well, I have to use a past participle, and when my subject is singular, I will use the verb be is. When my subject is plural, I use the verb to be are. So, Spanish is singular, so I'm gonna form the passive voice putting Spanish is spoken in Mexico. Okay, in case that my subject is plural, I will say English and Spanish are spoken in Mexico. So when I want to make a passive voice, the object becomes the subject. Okay? Mexico, people in Mexico speak Spanish. It's an active voice. How do I make the passive voice? Well, speak is in present, simple present. So I have to use the verb in present, is or are. Spanish is singular, so I use is. Spanish is spoken in Mexico. Okay, so let's see more examples. As we saw, sentences can be passive or active. Okay? The subject of an active sentence is the doer of the action, as we saw before. The subject of a passive sentence is the object of the action. Let's see this other example, okay? People is the subject of the sentence. Bottles, cans, and paper is the subject, but in the passive sentence, okay? So the object, let's see here. People send. Could you see the difference? And could you notice that in the active, the verb is in simple in the base form? And when we use passive, as I told you before, it's the past participle of the verb with the verb to be. Why are? Because bottles, cans, and papers are plural. That's why we use are. Okay, so in this class, we're going to do some exercises with passive voice and simple present. Then we're going to do other exercise with passive voice and present continuous. But first, let's do it with simple present, okay? So, the active. People sent bottles, cans, and paper to a nearby recycling facility. How can I make this a passive voice? Well, I have to look for the object. What is object? Bottles, cans, and paper. Now, I take this as my subject. Bottles, cans, and papers. Then I use the verb to be are and the verb in past participle sent and the rest of the sentence to a nearby recycling facility. Let's see another example. We use the passive when the action is more important than the doer of the action. Okay, that recycling is picked up on Wednesday. The doer is not important in this sentence. We don't need to know who or by whom is picked up. I just want to notice that the recycling is picked. Here you could see the verb to be is, because this is a singular subject, picked past participle. Remember that we can make the passive in any tense. To form the passive, use the form be plus a past participle. Today we are seeing examples of simple present, okay? And another rule is use by if you want to mention the doer of the action. Example, the student makes the homework. This is an active voice because the student is performing the verb. The student makes, and it has an S because it's the third person, he or she. So that's why it has an S. Now, how am I going to make the passive? I'm going to bring the object. The homework is going to be my subject. The homework, then I'm going to use the verb to be is and the verb in past participle made, and I'm going to use by to mention the doer of the action, by the student. So this is an active voice. The student makes the homework, and this is a passive voice. The homework is made by the student. So on your notebook, please write the grammar, the differences between an active voice and the difference between a passive voice. And please explain me, how do we form the passive? We form the passive using the form be plus a past participle. Let's do some exercises. An active voice. Tornadoes destroy hundreds of houses every year. So how can I make this sentence passive? Well, let's look for the object. Which is the object? Hundred of houses. So I'm going to take this as my subject. Okay? Hundreds of homes or houses, well, 100 of houses are, because it's a plural subject. I have to use the be, the verb to be. And it also could be negative. So in case if here we said tornadoes don't destroy, so I could use aren't, but here is affirmative. So tornadoes destroy hundreds of houses every year. Hundred of houses are. Then I have to use the past participle of the verb destroyed by the doer of the action, by tornadoes, and the complement every year. Let's make two more examples. People waste a lot of electricity. What is the object? A lot of electricity. This is a passive. A lot of electricity is, because it's a singular subject, wasted, past participle, by people, the doer of the action. Climate change causes floodings. Floodings is an object. I pass it as the subject. Floodings are caused by climate change. Well, now your turn to do your own exercises.